Hello and welcome to Lightroom Bite Size. Now in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to export your photographs from Lightroom for the internet or for print. Now just think, if you've exported for print, you could take a frame like this and a print like this and pop the print in there. Oops. And like magic, you'd have a wonderful frame print to hang onto your wall. Hang on to your wall, hang on your wall. Anyway, it wasn't really magic, was it? But listen, let me show you how to do the export. It's simple. Before you begin the export process, all you need to do is simply decide where the photographs are going to be used. Are they going to be for social media and the internet, or are they going off to print? Because that will sort of influence your decisions when you are, inputting the data for the export. Sounds a bit complicated, that, doesn't it? Honestly, it is really easy. I'm going to take you through it, and along the way, I'll show you how to add watermarks and include metadata. So let's make a start. Now, there are many ways to access the export dialog window, and I'm currently in the develop module. Now, if I jumped across to the library module, you'll see that we have this export button just here. And if I click on that, then the export dialog box will appear on the screen. Now, I'm going to cancel that, because I always find myself at the end of an edit, oddly enough, in the develop module. And when you're in the develop module, you actually lose this little export button. But don't worry, because there's plenty of other ways to access it. And let's go through them. So the obvious one would be File, Export. If I click on that, the window appears and we can do the export. If I right click on the image and click on Export, the dialog box will appear. I can also click on the thumbnail in the film strip, and I can access the export button just there as well. So one last way of doing it would be Shift, Command or Control E, and that bring up the export dialog window as well. So there's many different ways of doing it, and they all work exactly the same. But I thought I'd just make you aware of the fact that when you're in the develop module, you do lose that button. But as you can see, there's loads of other ways of accessing it, so nothing to worry about there. Now, you can export as many photographs as you like in one export. You can export one photograph or as many as you like. It doesn't matter. In this little example I'm going to show you, I'm going to export 5 photographs. And they're all taken in my local park here in Liverpool. So let me show you. Right, this image here is the current one. You can see that in the film strip. It's highlighted. I'm going to move along to the next one. And yes, I want to take that one, I want to take this one, I want to take this one, and lastly, this one. To do that, the 5 images you've just seen there, it's dead simple. I just simply put my finger on the Command or Control, if you've got a PC, and then just select the photographs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're the 5 images that I want to take across. Simple, isn't it? Well, I haven't done it yet, but it will be simple. And now I can choose any of those methods that I showed you earlier to bring up that export dialog box. And the quickest one for me is just to right click and then find export and click on it. And when I do that, straight away at the top, it is telling me that I am about to export 5 photographs. Well, you know that because you've just watched me select 5 photographs. Right, now I'm going to take you through this export procedure, through all the sort of the input that you need to make. And honestly, it really is simple. But as I said at the very start, you just need to consider whether the photographs that you are exporting are for the internet or for print. It's as simple as that, really. So export location, let's begin here. Export to, and you've got a choice. Now I'm not going to go through them all because I'm just going to say straight away that the best one to choose is specific folder. I'm going to export them to a specific folder, and I need to now create that folder. Now you may already have that folder created. You may pop your photographs in the same folder every time you export them. Honestly, it's up to you. But I'm going to choose, and I'm going to go to my desktop, because that's where I'm going to put them for the purpose of this tutorial. And I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that export prints. So I'm going to call that export prints and hit create. And I've now got a folder there on the desktop called export prints, and I'm going to choose that. You don't have to do this, but you've got the option then to create a subfolder. Now in this case I am, because I'm going to put a folder within that folder called Sefton Park. Because if I send all my future exports to this folder called export prints and I don't put them in a subfolder, it's all going to get a bit messy. Now again, you may just create folders for every time you export, create a new folder with, you know, whatever location or event that particular set of photographs have come from. But I thought it was quite nice to show you how to put them into a subfolder. I don't want to add them to a catalogue. And lastly, this existing files, I always leave that on ask what to do. And what that means is if you're about to create an export and it has the same name as a previous export, it will give you a little warning. In other words, it stops you creating an export or, you know, exporting a photograph with an identical name to a photograph that you've previously exported. So I would always leave that on ask what to do. Next section then is file naming. Now again, you've got plenty of options which are here. I'll go through them in a second. You can choose to not rename your files at all when you export them, but I would suggest that you rename them. And the two I like are custom name and sequence and file name and sequence. So let me just click on file name and sequence. What you can see is if you have taken the time to rename your photographs inside of Lightroom, then that will be reflected here. And as you can see, I previously renamed these photographs Sefton Park, Palm House. And so that's what we'll do, the file name and the sequence. And the sequence here is going to begin at number 1. So it will be ascending from number 1 with the file name that I've created inside of Lightroom. Now, if you haven't renamed your images, and I quite often don't, so this is where I would choose custom name and sequence. And as you can see at the moment, it would be called untitled and with the ascending numbers starting from 1. And all I need to do is just to type into this box some custom text. And there you go, Sefton Park. And you can see now that those files will be renamed to Sefton Park with the ascending number starting from 1. And that's great. I'm just going to leave it as that. So again, they're the two choices you've got: custom name or, you know, file name that you've already created inside of Lightroom. By all means, take a look at some of the others, but they're the two that I would suggest. Now the next one is video, and of course we're not looking at video, so we'll skip past that. Now, file settings and image size are really important. And as I mentioned earlier, this all comes down to where the photographs are going to end up. Are they going to end up on the internet just for people to view, or are you going to print them? So let me take you through the file settings first then. Image format, and you've got a choice. Now the one you're going to select 99 times out of 100 is JPEG. Because if it's going to go to the internet, it's going to be JPEG. If it's going to go to print, it's going to be JPEG. But you've got the option to export as a PSD, TIFF, DNG, or the original RAW file. Honestly, you're virtually always going to select JPEG. Now, quality, I don't mess around with this too much. In fact, I don't mess around with it at all. I always leave it on 100. And I believe that, I would say anyway, that, you know, numbers less than 85, you're going to get a really, you know, inferior image quality. So if it's really important to you to sort of make your file sizes smaller, don't drop below 85. Honestly, trust me, leave it on 100. It's fine. The next one is color space, and again, industry standard sRGB. Just leave it on sRGB, it's fine. And if it isn't on sRGB, make sure it is. And then lastly, limit file size. And again, this is where you may perhaps about to upload a photograph to a website and they may say make it no bigger than 3 megabytes. Well, this is where you can limit the file size. Again, it's not something I do. I'll show you the method I use, but by all means you can limit that file size in this little box here. I'm just going to leave that unchecked for now. So moving on, then we have the image sizing options just here. Now currently, looking at this, what would happen is, if I left it the way it is, Lightroom would export those 5 photographs at the size they are currently at 300 pixels per inch. Now before I move on, just make a note about that. 300 pixels per inch is generally the industry standard for a fine print. So try and remember that number. And but yeah, trust me, that is the industry standard there for a quality print. Now I want to resize my images. That's what this section's all about, image sizing. So I'm going to check this little box here, resize to fit. Now you have a number of options, and the option that I go to mostly is long edge. Long edge pretty much covers everything. Now at the moment the units are set to centimeters, and this number here, 29.7, is actually the width of a piece of A4 paper. So a piece of A4 paper is 21 centimeters by 29.7. So currently Lightroom would make sure that the longest edge of this particular photograph, if we just look at this one, it's a landscape, isn't it? The longest edge would be 29.7, and it would fit perfectly on a piece of A4 paper with the print resolution of 300 pixels per inch. So it would be a fine print on a piece of A4 paper, or size for A4 paper. We can change that to inches, and I could type in there 10. So now I would have a 10 by 8 sized photograph, or certainly the longest edge would be, and again at the highest quality. Let's change this then to pixels, because if I wanted this just to be on a social media or photographic site, I would change this figure to 2000 pixels and the resolution to 72. Now why would I change the resolution to 72? Because a computer screen resolution is 72 pixels per inch. There's no real need for it to be 300. It wouldn't do it any harm if you left it at 300, but there's no real need. And this will keep the file size nice and small for uploading to the internet. Now that is the way I do it. By all means, like I always say, play around with some of the other ones, but that is the way I do it. Now I'm going to change this back to centimeters, and 29.7 and 300. So that, it's simple really, isn't it? You know, for me, I think the decision is select long edge and then select either pixels or centimeters, or if you work in inches, and then change this to either 72 or 300. And depending on whether you want it to be just uploaded to the internet or it's going off to print. Simple as that. Now the next one is output sharpening. Now it's something I don't bother with, and the reason being is because I've generally sharpened my image, you know, already in Photoshop using the detail tools. Photoshop, I don't do it in Photoshop, I do it in Lightroom, sorry. And I've probably already done that, as I say, using the detail tools. So I leave this off, I don't bother with it. But you know, you've got the option to sharpen for screen or different papers, and then different sorts of levels of sharpening. But if you know, it's something I don't do, so we're not going to bother with that one. Okay, the next one on our little journey is metadata. And again, you've got options to select what you want. Maybe you just want the copyright only, copyright and contact info only, all metadata, etc., etc. It's up to you what you want to do there. And so you can export it with all metadata. So that's all your camera details, the settings that you use to take that image, and keywords, etc. So you can choose to include all of it or just parts of it. That's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? And again, you just make that choice there. And lastly, we have watermarking. Now, watermarking is a very popular thing to do, isn't it? It's not something I really add to my photographs. But yes, I'm going to show you how to add a watermark. Now, if you don't want a watermark, leave this box unchecked. But I'm going to make it active, and it's going to apply a simple copyright watermark. So let's just take a look what that looks like. So I've clicked here and I'm going to select Edit Watermarks. And there you go. It is popped into the left-hand corner, copyright Frank Minghella. And in this box here, I could type in whatever text I want to apply. Also, you've got these presets here. So this is one I used recently for a client, and I didn't want them to print the images without paying me. So they all went out with sample for review on them. So they're very, and you can see there in this box here, I've just simply typed in sample for review. And you can use this side here to sort of control, what particular font you want and what size. You can add a shadow to it. You can do all kinds of stuff there. You can play around with that. And also you can position that using this little box here. So that's a kind of simple watermark. What about if you want to add a custom watermark with your signature, which is quite popular, isn't it? So for that, I would switch. We go up here, watermark style. I would switch that to graphic. Now it's asking me to find the graphic, and I've got one created in here. And there it is. I'm just going to click on that. Now it's a PNG file. Now if you don't know how to make a PNG file, leave a little comment below. It's very simple. But yeah, I created this earlier. So I'm going to choose that. And lo and behold, there it is on the photograph. I don't want it there. I want it to be in the left-hand corner. And I don't want it to be tight against the side. So I can use these sliders to bring it in. And I don't want it to be that high either. I want it to be round about there. And there you go. Now, before I finish there, I'm just going to go up to this menu here, and I'm going to save current settings as a new preset. Click on this, and let's call it FP photo logo. That'll do. Call it what you like, but that's it. That'll do me. FP photo logo, and I will just create that. So that is now saved as a preset, and I can apply that to future exports, and it will always appear in that bottom left-hand corner. Very easy, wasn't it? I was messing around earlier, and I created this one. Let's have a look. Bite-sized tutorial, and there you go. So once you've got them in as presets, it's very easy to just select them. And I could still move that around if I wanted to. But anyway, it's fine there, isn't it? And I'm then simply just going to click on done. And now I'm applying the FP photo logo as a watermark to all 5 of those photographs. That was easy, wasn't it? Lastly, very much lastly, is this part, the post-processing part of the export. You can choose to do nothing. That way, those images that you're exporting will just go to the folder, and that's it. You could choose to show in Finder. So when they're exported, your Finder will open up and it will show you where the photographs are. Now, the one I like to choose is Open in Photoshop. Now, there's a reason I do that, and honestly, you don't have to do this, but I am a bit of a Photoshop wizard, I would like to think. So I always have a little look in Photoshop, and for this particular tutorial, it's going to help me to show you something else. So in this case, I am going to select Open in Photoshop. As I say, you don't have to. Now, all that's left to do is to click on Export. So I'm going to click on Export, and in the progress window up here, you can see it's starting to export those 5 images, and very quickly they have opened up inside of Photoshop. And I have now 5 photographs And if you go along here, I know you might not be familiar with Photoshop, but don't worry, it will serve its purpose for this part of the tutorial. And we can see we've got 5 images: Sefton Park 1, Sefton Park 2, Sefton Park 3, 4 and 5, and they all have the watermark added to the left hand corner, which is where I wanted it to be. So that was a nice little batch export, wasn't it? So hopefully, if you're still watching, I'm going to add a little extra, and I'm going to show you how I send my photographs to print. Now I do this inside of Photoshop, so I know perhaps you're not skilled in Photoshop or it's something you don't use, but anyway, I'll show you what I do. So I'm going to start off by creating a new document. So File, New, and then I'm going to select this one here, 29.7 times 21. In other words, an A4 piece of paper, or you can just type it in here, but I already had one set up, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to call this Sefton Park Print. And I'm just going to create this blank document. Okay, now I'm going to go back to this first image here. And what I want to do is I want to send this to that blank document. And the easy way to do that would be to right click on the layer just here and duplicate the layer. And I'm going to call this Sefton Park 1. And I want it to go to the Sefton Park print document. And I just click on OK. So now when I select this Sefton Park print document, you can see it's on its own layer on this background document that I've made. Now I'm going to make it a bit smaller, and again, it's, as I say, it's not a Lightroom, it's not a Photoshop tutorial, but I'm just going to resize that and make that a bit smaller. So there you go, it's now sitting on this piece of paper ready for print. And as a final thing, I would just put a bit of text just here. And I'm just going to type in, you're probably sick of hearing the word Sefton Park, but anyway, Sefton Park, and there it is there. And I'm just going to make that text a bit smaller. It's a little bit big. And that would go off to the printer like that. Now, if you'd like me to do a video where I show you the whole printing method that I use, by all means leave a comment below and I'll take you through that, because I know I went through that quite quickly, but I would do it as a standalone video where I export from Lightroom, send it to the printer and show you the finished print at the end. And I might even talk about framing as well and how you'd size to get within a certain size frame. So leave comments below, and if I get enough comments, I will do a little video based around that. So there you have it then, exporting from Lightroom. It's simple, isn't it? Now I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, put a little thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so, and click on the little bell icon to be notified of further uploads. But above all else, thank you so much for watching. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next upload. Bye for now.
Take a photograph and make the moment last ever perfect. Photo company.